Foundry has officially released Nuke 17.1 open beta. While this isn't a huge future release, it's another important step towards modern compositing. The headline feature is improved support for animated Gaussian splats. The new geosequencer node can import animated splat sequences from formats like USD, PLY, and Splat, converting them into a format that you can manipulate throughout the shot. But that's only part of the story. Splat render can now relight Gaussian splats using Nuke's own spot and direction lights. You can control shadows, output normal passes, position passes, and integrate them much more naturally inside your 2D composite. In my opinion, I don't think this update is about Gaussian splats alone because Gen AI and side effects Houdini are coming for Foundry Nuke. So this is where the compositing is heading. 10 years ago, compositors mainly received render images. Today, we are receiving deep data, USD scenes, point clouds, and now Gaussian splats. Compositing is slowly become more scene aware instead of image aware. That's a pretty fundamental change. Foundry clearly isn't treating Gaussian splat as an experiment before. They are going to become a part of everyday workflow in future. Personally, I think compositors have even more to gain. Imagine you are adding smoke, explosion, spark, or dust into a live action shot. Normally, you are eyeballing a perspective, adjusting a scale, animating by hand, and adding some fake parallax, sometimes painting a custom mats. Now imagine placing those exact same elements inside a reconstructed version of a real set. Everything feels instantly grounded. The perspective, the parallax, occlusion becomes normal and easier. People keep asking, will Gaussian splat replace compositing? No, they are going to enhance the 2D compositing. They are removing the technical friction of a 2D limitation. But you still need to do color matching, light trap, grain, defocus, integration, and creative judgment. None of those skills will disappear. But if software can solve perspective and placement automatically, that gives artists more time to focus on making beautiful composites. That's the future I'm excited about. Next up, ComfyUI now supports MCP or Model Context Protocol. If you never heard of MCP, think of it as a USB for AI. Today, every application speaks in own language. If ChatGPT needs to communicate with Nuke, someone has to build a custom bridge. If it's need Blender, another bridge, ShotGrid, another one. MCP replaces all of that with one common language. Every application understands the same protocol. In my opinion, this doesn't look exciting. There is no shiny demo, no crazy AI video, no image generator. But I honestly think this might be become one of the biggest AI development over next few years. Imagine opening a chat GPT and saying, open my version 28 Nuke script and find everything missing read node, download today plates, update the latest version, submit everything to deadline. Just typing a prompts, the AI doesn't just answer questions, it actually coordinates to a pipeline. This is where AI becomes useful, not because it makes prettier images, because it removes repetitive work. I think we'll spend less time clicking buttons and more time directing intelligent assistant. Unfortunately, not all this week's news is positive. Another London VFX studio has entered insolvency following months of financial struggle and management decision. Whenever something like this happens, social media immediately says AI killed another studio. Personally, I think that's oversimplifying the problem. Studios don't collapse because one thing. Usually, it's several things happens at once: bad acquisition, poor management, shrinking current budgets, tax incentives, production slowdowns, and AI certainly changes the industry. But poor business decisions often far more damage than technology ever could. I really hope we're talking more about the business side of VFX because that's where many problems begins. Recently, AWS published a really interesting case study this week. Instead of focusing on another AI model, they focusing on training speed. Using scalable cloud infrastructure, AI models can now train dramatically faster than before. Here's what stood out to me. Everyone talks about AI models. Very few people talk about how those models are actually built. The faster you can train, the faster you can improve. Imagine a studio training a cleanup model. Instead of waiting for 2 weeks, they get the results in 2 days. Now they can test, improve, retrain, and improve again, all during the same production schedule. That's a massive competitive advantage. I honestly think the future belongs to studios building their own private AI models, models trained on their own starts, their own pipeline, their own data. That's something public AI models that never can replace. Disney Research recently released a fascinating paper this week. They introduced something called Neural Render Proxy. The goal is simple: give lighting artists interactive feedbacks that incredibly close to final portrait quality. Instead of waiting for several minutes after every lighting adjustment, artists can see the results instantly. If you notice something, it is actually not replacing our artist. It removes waiting time. Creative people don't want AI making artistic decisions. They want AI removing the bottlenecks when doing a creative work. If rendering becomes interactive, artists will naturally experiment more. More experiments will actually lead to better images. That's where I think AI deliver the biggest value. Finally, one movie that has been getting praised this week is Sheep Detective. Besides having surprisingly heartfelt story, the visual effects caught my attention. One interesting observation was the lighting. If you watch carefully, the sun direction actually changed between some shots, sometimes even different sheep standing in the same scene. Normally, we call that physically incorrect, but here is the fascinating part: almost nobody notices. Why? Because our brain judges animal faces differently from human faces. The lighting sheets actually make the character feel more appealing. The facial animation, fur grooming, and look and development were all excellent, although sometimes I felt part of the body animation were look little floaty. In my opinion, this remains something every compositor eventually learns. Perfect realism isn't always goal. Sometimes the goal is simply making the audience believing the moment. If nobody noticed the cheat, then it's probably good visual effects. So looking back this week, I don't even see separate news stories. I see one clear trend. Compositing is become more connected to 3D data. AI becoming part of a production pipelines instead of standalone tools. Studios are investing more in infrastructure than flashy demos, and at the same time, industry is still dealing with a real business challenge that technology alone can't resolve. The next 5 years are going to change how we work, not because artists are disappearing, but because the tool around us are become more smarter every single month. So what do you think? Is Nuke 17 is the biggest story this week, or Gaussian Splat finally become practical, or do you think MCP is a real game changer nobody is talking about? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video this week VFX Weekly, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week with more VFX news. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to topicroomvfx.com.